Hey everyone, I'm Molly O'Brien. Thanks so much for joining us here in the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'd like to say hello and welcome on this Friday afternoon. Our first guest is joining us from Mystic Aquarium, our friend Eric Fox, who is a penguin trainer at Mystic Aquarium, and our very special guest, Purple Blue, is joining us. Eric, hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, thank you.
So we do have a special guest. Purple Blue also made the trip today from Mystic Aquarium, and you do have a support staff with you behind us, so I'd like to say thank you to them as well for making the trip. Talk to us a little bit about Purple Blue, and then we'll get into your job that you do at Mystic Aquarium.
Absolutely. So Purple Blue here is one of our African penguins of a colony of 31 at Mystic Aquarium. So we name them all by the bracelets they wear on their wings. So she's a female penguin because she's got this pink bead, then two purple and then two blue. So we call her Purple Blue. So this way we can tell the difference between the 31 penguins in our colony and really help to make sure we're taking the best care of them possible.
So talk to us a little bit about the colony and a little bit about African penguins, because they are endangered, and part of Mystic's mission is to educate and also promote conservation.
Absolutely. So when it comes to our African penguins, first off, many people are surprised to hear you could even find penguins in Africa. A lot of people think of penguins as a cold weather animal, but most penguin species come from warm places, like the African penguin, which would naturally be found in South Africa and Namibia. So our role, with the mission to inspire people to care for and protect our ocean planet, is to educate our guests that come through the aquarium doors about the animals we share our planet with and what they can do to help them as well.
It's fascinating. So talk to me a little bit about the specific type of penguin, because I've been learning quite a bit. Each time that Mystic is here, I get to learn so much. It's like 21 questions over and over and over again. So talk to me a little bit about this species of penguin. What's unique about them? What's interesting? What are some fun facts?
Yeah, so if you think about penguins coming from a warm environment, they're not only well adapted to withstand really warm temperatures, but the water they swim in is very cold. So they also have to be able to survive in icy cold water. And so when it comes to African penguins, they are very well adapted to withstand a variety of temperatures. So some of the interesting features on an African penguin would be something like the eye patches right above their eye. So those eye patches work to actually help to cool off their body temperature. So if they're a bright red color, it might mean they're trying to cool themselves off, where right now it's a nice light pink color. It lets me know she's very comfortable in the environment that she's in. Same thing with her feet. She can sometimes kick them out. And when she does this, we're not only able to inspect the bottoms of her feet, but sometimes if she did this on her own, she would be trying to cool her body heat off as well. Whereas her entire body are covered in feathers as well. There's about 70 per inch covering their entire body.
So I do remember from last time that you all were here, you were talking about their beak, and each beak is unique to each penguin, and their feather pattern is also unique. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure.
Maybe I remembered wrong.
No, you're absolutely correct. So the spot pattern that's on Purple Blue's chest is unique to Purple Blue. Wow. So as unique to penguins as our fingerprint is to us. So we could use those to identify them, but the bracelets help us tell a little bit quicker. But those beaks are also made out of the same material as our fingernails. So little pieces will potentially break off or regrow throughout their entire lives. So it makes for some interesting shapes and structures on their beak too.
I think that is fascinating and incredible. And yeah, while you are very good at your job, I think it would be a little bit difficult to try to identify every penguin just based on their feather pattern.
Absolutely.
The bracelets make it a little bit easier. So I always think it's kind of fun and interesting when we hear about the relationships that animals form. And you have talked to me before about how penguins are the type of species that mate for life. So I was curious if, as we celebrated Valentine's Day just a couple days ago, if Purple Blue here was single still, or if she had a partner in her at Mystic Aquarium. And then I wanted to know more about how you work to, if they pick their own partners, or if you help promote that. So, and I find that very interesting, because how you continue to help this species along. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So yes, penguins do mate for life. Not every penguin species does, but the African penguin species is a species that will pick one mate and stay with it for their entire lifetime. Purple Blue right here is one of our younger penguins. She doesn't have a mate quite yet, but in thinking of how they select their mates, they can often select their own mates, but at the aquarium we can also make sure that we have very healthy genetics in our populations. Unfortunately, African penguins are endangered, so it's important to have this really important backup plan for these animals. And then while they're in our care at Mystic Aquarium, we're able to understand their behavior and start to really build special bonds with them. And that bond is a great way to be able to do a lot of different training with them. So we can train them for their own husbandry care and being able to check the different parts of their feet. Like when I looked at her feet earlier, or when I looked at her beak, I could even open up her mouth to look inside, or touch her wing, or even train them to have other people pet them, maybe our veterinarians, or even through our educational programs at the aquarium as well. We offer many different unique encounter programs that allow our guests to get hands-on with these animals and really understand more about them.
It's absolutely fascinating. Talk to me a little bit about the relationship you have with these animals, because like you said, you get to the point where you're close enough to where you're able to open up their beak, you're able to inspect their feet, and then help them build a relationship to where other people can too. We were just in the back taking pictures, and you said, yeah, you can pet her back. Talk to me about the relationship you have with these birds and what that's like for you.
So it's one of the most rewarding things to really get to work on as a penguin trainer is to build a unique bond with each penguin. They all have their own personalities, so it's important for us to take very small steps in creating that trusting bond with them. And it's amazing if you have that relationship, knowing that they're a species that mates for life. It's amazing what you're able to do with that relationship. So those behaviors that I mentioned, they are able to be done because we have that trust. She knows her trainers. Each trainer has a completely different bond with each penguin, and based on that trust, we're able to really advance what we can do with our animals and making sure that we can provide the best care for them possible.
Wow, that's incredible. Talk to me a little bit about what your daily work is like at the aquarium. Not only do you work with the animals, but you also work with people, working with education and that kind of thing. Talk to me about, just walk us through kind of a basic day at Mystic Aquarium.
Sure thing. Well, with a colony of 31 penguins, one reality is that it is quite messy. It definitely requires a lot of cleaning every day to make sure their habitat is in perfect condition for our animals. But not only do we make sure that they are in a great environment, we also make sure to provide them several feeding sessions throughout the day. So our guests that come to the aquarium are able to see them swallow their fish completely whole. We make sure each penguin gets a variety in their diet to make sure they are getting great care. But also, you mentioned, a lot of times our job is not only working with animals, but also inspiring our guests to do something to help protect these really amazing animals too. And so we will constantly do different programs with them, microphone presentations, and sometimes for different times of the year, we also have special events to get people more excited to come in and learn about these animals. So just this February, we're going to be hosting our Tropical Sensation Week. So for February 17th through the 25th, we're going to be hosting all sorts of different fun and exciting events. Kind of falls in with vacation week for a lot of schools, so it's a sort of staycation for those who are staying in the area. And they can come in and see different demonstrations going on with our animals, as well as some extra added bonuses, like taking photos with some of our different tropical princesses, as well as learning about hula hoop and hula dancing. So there's a lot of different really fun, exciting things for us as staff to be involved in, because that is our mission, is to really inspire those guests in any way that we can. And so we really like to provide that opportunity to make conservation and learning fun and exciting for all of our guests and families that come through.
And the staff at Mystic Aquarium, the people who are there, it's so noticeable how much you do care about the animals and how much you do care about the education and about the mission. And so if anybody gets the opportunity to go there, whether it's for one of the programs, whether it's for school vacation week, or whether it's for an event, I highly encourage you talking to anyone that you bump into that is part of the aquarium, because you really do care about what you're doing and what you do care about the work. So it comes out in what you do. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the programs that you have at the aquarium, because there's tons of events going on, and then you're working on, you talked a little bit about Tropical Sensations, so many events coming up, but let's talk a little bit more about some of the new programs that are coming out, more opportunities to continue that education.
Absolutely. So we try to provide quite a variety and different experiences for our guests to learn more about these animals. So at Mystic Aquarium itself, we have encounter programs and interactive programs with many of our different penguin species, or penguin animals, as well as other ambassador species, like our beluga whales and our seals. So no matter what type of animal people are interested in, we try to provide educational experiences on them. But we've also been able to take it a step further. We know some people might not come through the aquarium doors, but we want to reach out to them as well. And so we've designed many different programs in order to do so. We have a web chat program. It's called Distance Learning, where we can web chat right into a classroom of different children who are interested, different students that might be interested about penguins or about ocean animals or conservation in general. And we also have traveling programs where we're able to travel with some of our animal ambassadors to really inspire future conservationists and really ask them to act as stewards for the environment to help protect these animals that they're so excited about meeting.
I think that's so neat because, you might not get the opportunity to visit Mystic, and through web education, you can connect with people that are in the middle of the country or in a different country,
yeah.
which is pretty exciting. You did mention that these African penguins are endangered, and through the work that you do, you get a chance to talk with people and talk with, kids that are growing up and thinking, I want to help this species. What can I do? Talk to me a little bit about what type of threats that this type of animal is facing in the wild population.
Absolutely. So unfortunately for African penguins, the main reason they are endangered is because of human activity. Some things like oil spills and trash pollution, as well as overfishing and climate change, all these things are coupling together to really make it very difficult for these animals to survive in their native environments. The thing is, if it's all human related, it's really up to us to fix that. And that's what we try to spread the word about. So a lot of it comes down to lifestyle changes. Small things like making sure not to litter, or reducing our dependence on oil by walking when we don't need to drive our car, or by taking a second shorter shower. All those things, if 7 billion people really coupled together to do that, it would make a huge difference for not only penguins, but so many other animals. But in thinking of the skills that we acquire by working so closely with them, we also partner with a facility in South Africa known as SANCOB. It stands for the Southern African Foundation for the Conservation of Coastal Birds. We also send our staff members down to help in different conservation projects to put our skills to the best use possible in helping these animals.
And you actually got to be part of that program, and you actually went to South Africa, not this year, but last year, right?
Absolutely. So I had the chance to go down to partner with SANCOB. While I was there, I raised over 400 abandoned penguin chicks that were left behind by their parents. And it was a huge collaborative effort from zoos and aquariums all across the country providing that support in a time where SANCOB really needs it. But we also send our staff members down for this project every year. Our trainer Josh just returned from South Africa and got to do very similar conservation work while down there. So it's an absolutely great program for us to be able to be a part of.
What was that like for you personally? I mean, here you are, you're working with this penguin colony that's 31 penguins. Like, you've built these relationships with these animals, and here you are, you're going to a country, and now you're literally saving these lives of these baby chicks. I mean, what was that like for you? That has to be so inspiring, empowering, uplifting, emotional. I can't imagine.
Absolutely. First off, it was probably the hardest work I'll ever have the chance to do. If you think about helping to raise 400 chicks, there's a lot of work to be done in a day. But when I was able to help release those penguin chicks, I got to go on a release of about 34 African penguins that were rehabilitated there. In that 2-week span I spent there were over 100 penguin chicks that were released. So it is the most rewarding experience I think I'll ever have, and it's amazing to know that I got to come back to the States and share that information with all the guests that come through the aquarium doors and letting them understand more about what is going on for African penguin conservation and how we can best help.
And it's really neat to know that when you go visit the aquarium and you're learning about these programs and you're going to fundraisers and you're going to these different events, what you're doing is going to help conservation in the wild and promote further education, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Everything that we do at the aquarium in some way supports the conservation of one of our animals. So whether it's our African penguin conservation efforts, we also send our staff to Alaska recently to help an orphaned beluga calf. We have staff constantly helping in global conservation efforts all across the world. So it's a great opportunity, and it would not be possible without the aquarium guests that come through our doors every day.
That's pretty incredible. Talk to us a little bit about some of the fun events you have coming up. We talked about Tropical Sensation, which is absolutely incredible. And talk to us about a couple other events that you have coming up. Some programs are sold out, but lots of other opportunities to have fun at the aquarium.
Absolutely. So there's always different ways for our guests to get involved in our facility in many different ways. Even if events are maybe sold out this month, there's still many events that we host all throughout the year. One of the best things to do is if you follow us on Facebook or if you become members of the aquarium, you'll get a lot of emails about some of those events that are coming up, as well as other exclusive opportunities. And so some of the different events that we host throughout the year are things like South African Wine Night. You'll be able to learn more about South African cuisine, as well as get to see our animal ambassadors up close. We also host Pancakes with Penguins programs and Pizza with Penguins programs. There's many different opportunities all throughout the year to have a lot of fun again, but also helping to support those conservation efforts in a huge way.
Absolutely incredible. So walk us through, before we let you go, because I know you do need to get back to work, and I'm sure she needs to get back to her daily routine. Talk to us a little bit about what their diet looks like and what their daily enrichment activities look like, because that's part of it too, right?
Absolutely. So a big part of my job is to make sure they get the proper nutrition. So we offer a variety of fish, anything from a small silver side all the way up to a very large herring or squid. They swallow all their fish completely whole. They don't even have teeth. Instead, inside their mouths, they've got these little spikes that allow them to grasp onto the fish and swallow it completely whole. And she did a great job demonstrating how she can open up that mouth for you to see.
Wow.
But also when it comes to...
It's a lot of spikes.
There are a lot of spikes in there, right? Yeah. When it comes to the enrichment program, that is a great way to make sure we're providing that top-notch care for our animals. So we try to make sure every day they're using their exhibit space different, provided with different choices to make, so we can bring objects out onto exhibit or allow them to hear different things they might not be as used to, allow them to explore different objects floating around in the water, or even the training that we do with them. A lot of times if you're training an animal, you're giving them opportunities to continue to learn, which is one of the most fundamental ways to provide great care for them. So all those things fall under enrichment and their daily care every day.
Did you know that you always wanted to work with animals?
I did. Yeah, I always knew I wanted to work with animals. Penguins were kind of a surprise to me, but it became one of the most amazing jobs I could ask for.
Wow, that's incredible. I feel like you would probably know, but did you just kind of fall into penguins?
Yeah, so I actually applied for an internship to get that hands-on opportunity at an aquarium setting, which led to several more internships because I just would not leave. So, you know, putting that hard work in and realizing how amazing these animals are and how individual they are and how exciting it is to get to work with them and help them in their native environments, I knew that it was the perfect fit for a job for me.
I think it is the perfect fit for you and the aquarium, because you are very knowledgeable at what you do and you're very good at what you do. And I think the penguins like you too.
Thank you.
Eric Fox, thank you so much. Purple Blue, thank you so much for joining us today. She did great.
She did an awesome job.
She just hung out the whole time. You weren't wiggly at all. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
If you have any questions about the aquarium, you can visit them. We'll also have links on our website as well. Tons of programming coming up. I also encourage you to check out their web series, Behind the Aquarium. It's really incredible. It shows a ton of information there as well. So Eric Fox, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
We're going to just take a quick break as we transition here on GoLocal Live. All right, everyone, thanks for continuing to join me on GoLocal Live in the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. Our next guest is Linda Hurley. She is CEO and President of Kodak Behavioral Care. Linda, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. So we're going to have a conversation today, but first let me give you a proper introduction. Linda's been working in substance abuse treatment and behavioral health care for more than 30 years, and Kodak is Rhode Island's oldest and largest outpatient opioid treatment program and provider of general outpatient addiction services and behavioral health care and recovery resources. So Kodak is celebrating 40 years in Newport County, so that's kind of what sparked us wanting to bring you in here. We wanted to talk to you a little bit about that, celebrating 40 years, and then talk to you about the work that you've done with Kodak, and then talk about what's going on in Rhode Island, about treatment services, and much more. So thank you again once for joining us.
You're welcome.
So let's talk a little bit about the opioid epidemic in Rhode Island. You have much of a background in dealing with treatment. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how the opioid epidemic in Rhode Island has impacted your treatment facility, how it's impacted Kodak's treatment facility over the past couple of years.
Okay. Well, the overdose epidemic has impacted Kodak Behavioral Health Care dramatically. And it's been impacted because of the increased need for our services. Kodak Behavioral Health Care is just that, behavioral health care. So we provide psychiatric care, gambling, tobacco, care for alcohol issues, folks that require care for cocaine addiction. And we are really well known for providing the care that we provide for opioid use disorder. And that is with a combination of services that include medication-assisted treatment. Medication-assisted treatment is critical right now as we're looking at this opioid overdose epidemic, because it is the evidence-based treatment. It is the thing that is proven to be most successful for most people who are seeking healing from this chronic relapsing disease of the brain. And the medications, there's 3 FDA-approved medications. Kodak Behavioral Health Care provides all 3 of them. There's some methadone is a medicine, buprenorphine is a medicine, something called naltrexone or Vivitrol is a medicine. And the medicine itself is an integral part or a critical part of providing a whole set of treatment provision that allows somebody to heal holistically, if you will, because none of us ever get sick in a vacuum. There's many things that need to be addressed. So,
yeah, let's talk a little bit about that, because you've been in this field for several years. Talk to me a little bit about how you've seen treatment grow and change, maybe adapt over the past, say, 30 years or so, whether it's within Kodak or within just the field itself. You talked a little bit about that introduction of medicated treatment, but also that holistic approach. Talk to me a little bit about how you've seen the treatment options and approach change.
Okay. Over the last 30 years, I have seen and others have seen, but certainly here at Kodak Behavioral Health Care, we have seen treatment change dramatically due to what the science has taught us over the last 30 years, and due to an ongoing increasing need for our services. So more and more people are suffering from the disease of opioid use disorder. So we've had to change to address that increased need. And the science has said, and this works, and this works, and this works. So we've also added additional services. So those services, you have the medication-assisted treatment, which many are talking about now. That's a fairly common point of conversation in this epidemic conversation. There's also all the other healing that needs to occur. So there's family counseling, individual counseling. Perhaps someone needs housing. Maybe it's the idea of what is my value? Do I need a new job? How do I get education? There's a myriad of opportunities to heal from what gets taken away when somebody suffers from this disease.
I find it interesting you are looking at it from multiple angles, multiple aspects, and I think the way that society looks at addiction and looks at it also changes the way that we seek and approach treatment, right? I think the idea Kodak approaches this from a family approach, and so you have treatment options for families. How important is that to you and the organization?
That's a critical component. It's always up to the individual's choice. What Kodak does, what we do, is provide highly personalized care so that the individual that comes for help has choices in those areas in which they're, they're going to create a treatment plan, if you will, or a care plan. And an important area is family or support system. Not all families can be supportive, but if your family can be, then that's critically important. Again, there's nothing from which we suffer that happens in a vacuum. We're humans, and we are about relationship. And so those relationships suffer with the disease and therefore must be part of the healing. I can't stress how important it is for a family or other important people in someone's life to be a part of their healing process.
I definitely think that is important. Linda, let's talk a little bit about Kodak in Newport County celebrating 40 years. A lot of things have grown and changed. Let's talk about measuring things in terms of success. How do you do that in this sort of field?
The best way to really understand the success is probably best through the stories that people share. I will share one with you now that really is probably one of the most common, and it continues to, actually, it warms my heart to be able to talk about it, is a mom referred a young man to us for care who was being released from prison. He was only 20, and the only reason he had been to prison twice in Rhode Island was because of his opioid addiction. So they were nonviolent crimes, but here he was already with a felony, and 20 years old. And Mom was heartbroken. He's heartbroken. There's shame everywhere. And so this time what happened was the young man had the opportunity to receive care, medication-assisted treatment and counseling from Kodak, co-located and supported by the Department of Corrections. So when he left the Department of Corrections and returned to the Kodak facility, he already had his medicine. He was stable on his medicine. It was doing what he needed it to do. He wasn't sick. He wasn't craving. And they, and I think of family counseling, and it really is a story that now, several years later, you have a young man who is a dad, is a professional, and has a full and healthy life. And we see that every single day.
I think you have to look at those positive stories. I mean, maybe this is just me knowing people, myself having been impacted by this crisis. You have to look at individual stories of success, because if you're overwhelmed by the numbers and you look at the number of people that are dying, you'll never be able to get through it, right? I mean, that's just me thinking personally. But if you don't look at the individual success, then you can't continue to move forward.
And we can get more technical. We can use the statistics. 90% of the folks that receive medicated assisted treatment, meaning treatment, they also use medicine, some of the medicines, you would never know. They're driving down the street now, they're going to work, they're putting their kids on the bus. It's that 8 to 10% of folks that are still struggling in the hard part of their disease that are so visible, that are so at risk for death, and also are, they're doing behaviors that aren't accepted in the community and aren't safe in the community, but that's what's visible. So you have a whole another 90% that are flourishing, but we don't see that. So that's why the stories are important, to put a face to it, because unfortunately those that are still in pain and still caught up in their disease are the only faces that get seen often.
Yeah, that's understandable. You've talked about this medication-assisted treatment, and through your work at Kodak and the Department of Corrections, you've really launched some programs there. Talk about the significant impact that you've made on lives of individuals at the Department of Corrections and through the ACI?
Through the support of the Department of Corrections, the director, the medical director, Kodak Behavioral Health Care has been offered a remarkable opportunity to partner to provide this care. Wednesday morning, there was research released, publication released in JAMA actually, that showed some of the tremendous impact that has occurred from this program. And again, sometimes statistics can be boring, we can get lost in them. I think what is important to know is that deaths due to overdose in the population that's recently incarcerated and re-entering the community are down 61% in Rhode Island. This program is remarkable, and I think that speaks to the impact.
I mean, it is incredible. Dr. Jody Rich, who's also quite involved working with the Department of Corrections, he was on this show and talked to us about the work that he was doing there, his involvement on the Overdose Prevention Task Force. You yourself are involved in that. When he was on this program, he talked to us about one of the main concerns that we should have within Rhode Island, and one of the biggest problems is that fentanyl is now coming in to illicit drugs, and it's my takeaway from what he said was it's in everything. Not only is it in the heroin supply, but it is in Valium. It's in these other types of drugs that you might not necessarily think about, and that's what's so dangerous. What are your concerns for Rhode Island?
With respect to fentanyl, Kodak has seen an increase, as has everyone else. We have surveyed our patients. Many of our patients aren't even aware that what they may have what they used had fentanyl in it.
That's scary.
What we heard recently at a Governor's Overdose Prevention Task Force meeting was that up to anywhere from 90 to 100% of the heroin in Rhode Island right now is contaminated or cut, if you will, with fentanyl. We're seeing overdose deaths that are coming from people using cocaine that were unaware that fentanyl was a part of the substance they were using, and there's even been confiscated marijuana that has been laced with, if you will,
wow,
with fentanyl. It is remarkably deadly. It is anywhere from 50 to 100 times more powerful, stronger than fentanyl. There are up to 100 different analogs, or just types of, if you will, fentanyl. Carfentanil is on the street, which is just exponentially more potent. If you think about the tip of a pin, the head of a pin, that amount of fentanyl is enough to force someone into respiratory failure. And it takes, if you're familiar with Narcan, if someone has administered Narcan and they are in overdose, it can take 2, 3, 4 kits of Narcan in order to resuscitate versus the 1 or 2 that it would take for heroin.
That is terribly frightening.
Yes.
It's terribly frightening. Thankful though that at least that we are getting this research, we're getting this knowledge, and that we have services like Kodak that can talk to the patients about this, that there's education, there's knowledge, so that at least we can talk to people about it. So thank goodness for that. I want to talk to you a little bit about the task force. I was reading over the plans today. Part of the plan was treatment, and that was to expand the quality and availability of medication-assisted treatment, which we've been talking about right now. And you do that at Kodak. The original plan said Rhode Island will train 420 providers by 2018 and expand access to medication-assisted treatment. I'm just curious, do you know where we stand on that? What does it look like as we move forward with this part of the plan?
That when we lump all of the medications into medication-assisted treatment, I think that's where a lot of confusion has grown. That goal was actually to increase the number of community physicians who would be able to provide buprenorphine if that was the medicine that was going to work for the individual with their opioid use disorder. So they have indeed, they haven't met the goal, but absolutely great strides have been made in the number of physicians in the community who have become certified, educated around this and able to provide buprenorphine. The methadone as a medication, there has never been, say, a wait list for methadone. If someone comes to Kodak Behavioral Health Care with opioid use disorder, if dad calls and says, my son, I really need to get him in treatment, we guarantee 24 hours. Within 24 hours of your call, you will be in a Kodak facility beginning the process of receiving care. If medication is indicated, that will happen within 24 hours. And that I can say as well that all the other opioid treatment programs providing methadone in the state, there's no wait list there either. So if methadone looks like it may be the indicated medication, and it was approved by the FDA in 1947, it is definitely the gold standard. But medicine is medicine, and what works for me may not work for Molly, and what works for Molly may not work for me. But that's really what the status is. So at that point in the report, when people were referencing MAT, they were really referencing the medication of buprenorphine.
Okay.
Because methadone was already available and at the drop of a hat.
I was kind of curious
Yeah.
because I know a part of what you do at Kodak is a medication-assisted treatment. So I was kind of curious to see where things stand, and then, of course, how we move forward.
We do. Kodak actually provides, I may have said this, provides all three of the FDA-approved medications.
Especially since there has been such a big success within the Department of Corrections. So seeing that this could be significant progress moving forward, I think this could be a great way to move forward, just continuing that education. That might be the way that Rhode Island goes. Yeah. Curious. What do you think the biggest, but before we kind of wrap up here, Linda, what do you think the biggest hurdle is for Rhode Island with this overdose epidemic? And how do we get over it?
I would have to say stigma. And understanding stigma as a perception of a disease that is based on almost pictures that we have of it versus what it really is. Chronic relapsing disease of the brain across all genders, across all socioeconomic status, across every demographic that we can think of. This is a disease that reaches everybody. And what we need to do, and what I'm so thankful for opportunities like this, is for the community, the family, the state, folks, residents in the state to recognize this as a disease. And so there are many paths to healing, and whatever works for each individual is what we want to offer. That's what we do at Kodak Behavioral Health Care. That's what many others are doing in the state. And to really address that stigma that that's rooted in the fact that opioid use disorder or substance use disorders have to do with character flaws and lack of morals or willpower, when it really is importantly, a disease of the brain which requires treatment and for which we have treatment.
We do have treatment, good treatment, which you've worked to build that within our community. Talk to me about, you've been known to really work to implement innovative treatment at Kodak Behavioral Health, different types of treatment for different behavioral care within Kodak. Talk to me a little bit about what you feel most proud of in your time at Kodak.
I think I'm so proud of the fact that Kodak Behavioral Health Care, its board, lives its mission, and that whatever is evidence-based, whatever appears to assist someone in healing is accepted, so that we may have expressive arts and nutrition and tobacco services and gambling service, problem gambling services. And what I am very most, I think I could say, proud of has been the opportunity to build a remarkable staff our staffing is tremendous. We have folks who hold this giant expertise, not just in treating addictions or substance use disorders, but in infectious disease and reproductive health and many areas. We, psychiatric services, because there's such a integration or overlay with substance use disorders and mental health disorders. So to have this group of remarkably well-trained, remarkably committed, and remarkably compassionate and respectful providers of care is what I am really most proud of.
It's excellent to be able to build up a community to take care of the community,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
build from just build up, level up.
Mm-hmm.
Level up. I think that's excellent, and really making each individual the best person that they can be, which you really worked to do. So kudos to you, and kudos to your staff. I think that's excellent. I think that's a pretty proud accomplishment.
Yeah.
Linda, Hurley, thank you so much for joining us today on Go Local Live. It's been such a pleasure to chat with you, and I hope you had a little bit of fun meeting the penguin too. Purple Blue was pretty. That was pretty fun.
I did. Thank you, and thank you for this opportunity, because this is how we address stigma, one conversation at a time.
Definitely. So hopefully you got some information from this. We will make sure to put a link to Kodak Behavioral Healthcare on our website as well for more information. I also think it's pretty excellent. Like you said, if people need services, 24 hours, you're in the door. No wait list, which some states, there is a wait list.
Right.
So we're pretty fortunate enough to have these services within our state. So if you, someone you love, does need some type of treatment services or are looking for help, please do reach out, and we'll make sure to get you the services. Lots of information there. So Linda, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to take a quick pause and get set up here for our next guest on GoLocal Live, the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us back here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Our friend, co-founder of the Guild, Jeremy Duffy, is in the house. Mr. Duffy, how are you?
Good, good. How are you?
Good. Cheers.
Cheers, by the way. Bad
Cheers.
Warm, but I'll still.
It's not warm.
No.
All right. Oh yeah, that is good.
There's a reason why you're drinking that.
That is good. It's new, so congratulations. We need to scoot everything over. All right, we're scooting everything over.
Just a little.
That one.
You're scooting over too,
Right here?
because otherwise we're
Okay.
not going to see you.
Okay, perfect.
So, we have you back today to talk about new expanding partnerships, new brews. You recently announced a couple new friends over at the Guild.
Absolutely.
So, talk to us first about what you just poured me, because I didn't see what you poured me, so I don't know what it is.
She just drank.
That's
So you're absolutely right. So 2018, we're already just out to the races here.
Off to the races.
Entered off to the races, exactly. I like to make up phrases. It is,
I didn't mean to correct you. I was just agreeing with you.
No, it was
Sorry.
actually perfect. Yes. So we have two new partners that we announced in 2018. The first one in which you are drinking right now is from Night Shift up in Boston, in Everett. And they just happen to be this really cool, hot brewery right now that is just exploding, and they needed extra capacity, so they're coming to us. We are excited to be able to, and we actually pour at 4 o'clock in 15 minutes. The first Centilli, which is their pale ale, but the first Night Shift in Rhode Island, because they don't distribute it. So they're just going to be only at the brewery, and there's a cult following around these guys.
Yeah.
So we expect the brewery to be absolutely packed this afternoon, which is really cool. So super excited to work with these guys. And then our next partners is Wash Ashore. Wash Ashore is Martha's Vineyard inspired. Like the owners are from Martha's Vineyard, and they make an IPA and they make a pale ale with some pretty funky designs, and the beer is very good. The great thing about this as well is that it's organic. So we are now
Organic?
Yes, we're now an organically certified facility, which is great. And this was just flying off the shelves last weekend.
Oh, this is
It's
the dog one,
Maya
right?
May.
She
Yes.
was in the house, right?
She was in the house.
That's so cool.
And it was like huge. So Maya May was
Biggest dog I've ever seen.
the celebrity hanging out at the brewery at the Guild. So it was very cool.
Okay, so I have lots of questions, but
Sure.
first of all, congratulations. You have been, the Guild has just, like you said, off to the races. 2018 has just, it's February 16th, and you've made tons of announcements. Also, just last night, Malted Barley had their launch party for their beer,
Correct.
which they brewed in collaboration with you.
Yeah, so that was the third one I wanted to mention. So we have a pilot system that we utilize. It's a smaller experimental brew house.
I have to take a sip while you're talking.
Absolutely. And so what that is primarily is
really
for is to be able to do small batch experimentals. So with that is we partnered with, we want to be creative as much as possible. So in this case, we partnered with Malted Barley, which is in Providence. They also have a location in Westerly, to make this pineapple wit beer, which they wanted to do. They came up with the recipe. We had our brewers involved. We collaborated, and we were thrilled. So we launched, I think they had over 200 people there last night experimenting the beer, which is great. They only gave us like less than a keg, which we're tapping tonight as well at the Guild. So we'll be able to showcase that. But if you want to try that, the only place you can do it, get it, is at the Malted Barley in Providence.
So are you looking to for that kind of thing? If people are interested in special projects, smaller projects, are you looking at maybe offering exclusive collaborations on a small scale? Like, is that something that you're looking at possibly doing in the future, or was that kind of a one-time thing?
No, I think it's the start of something.
Yeah.
I think we'll do more collaborations with Malted Barley. But I think also we're going to be looking at opportunities that we just like working with the people, or we really want to celebrate the craft beer community in Rhode Island. So there's some great craft-centric restaurants that we would love to do some things with. We've already talked to a couple of them, which would be great. The other is that our brewers are just here from just replicating these brands perfectly. They deserve, as I call a sandbox to play in, so they can do their own thing. And then they're also networked nationally with some great brewers. I'd like to see those collaborations too. So we just want to be as creative as possible around that and let them have fun. You know, that's the big thing. And most of the collaborations, and last time I was here, I was talking about the the Guild Brewer series, which is only taproom exclusive. That comes from that pilot system.
Cool.
So it's all kind of coming from there.
That's what I was gonna say, is making your own beer, and how does that stand apart from doing things with everybody else?
I think the biggest thing with that is that we will never, unless it's a collaboration in one location, we're not going to create our own beer to compete against our own partners. We actually thought that was just counter to the model.
Yeah.
But when people come to the brewery, they want to do and experience different beers every time, and people are just kind of coming through all the time. So that was one of the feedback, is they're like, okay, we've had these, can we do something different? Can we try something different?
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
So that's the reason why we're doing it, is continue to kind of drive traffic and have people come and enjoy.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about a couple of these companies, because, like you said, Night Shift has this massive following. I was reading about their company and looking at some of their social following. I mean, it's huge. And the opportunity that they wanted to partner with you, and now the opportunity that you can get this exclusively in Rhode Island at the Guild, that's pretty neat. So they literally just outgrew their space, came to you. What was the conversation like to have that opportunity to jump on board with them?
So help.
Yeah.
That was like the SOS. I think it's one of those things. So now we have 8 partners. We have to be super exclusive with the partners that we take on.
Yeah.
And to be honest, we are now booked out for 2018 into 2019 in terms of, we just cannot produce enough beer around that. But we want to, it's always been a two-way conversation of, you know, they need the capacity, but do we like their liquids? Do we like the team? They're good guys, you know, what all those things that are really kind of important. And Night Shift just fit that completely. Just a real good opportunity to take sort of, again, the kind of cultish brand, bring it, you know, to Rhode Island and do more things in New England and what they want to do from a business plan perspective. So great guys. Yeah, we're really, really excited about working with them. And the same with Wash Ashore. Wash Ashore is a virtual brewery. So that's why I used Martha's Vineyard themed and inspired, because they're all owners. All the owners are from Martha's Vineyard, but they don't have a brewery. So they were brewing up in Maine, and now they're moving all of their production down to us, because one of their partners is from Rhode Island. Oh. So he's super excited to have, you know, being brewed
connection.
here.
Yeah, a connection. I'm curious about this, do other partners at the Guild have a say on who comes in? Are they like, that ties too close to what we're doing with
Yeah,
you know?
Well, a couple things.
One, or is that up to you?
The pitchforks have not come out at all on that side, and the great thing about the whole community is that they really sort of embrace the community aspect of craft brewing. I think when it gets to, like, we won't do another ginger beer, right?
Can you just come a little bit closer to me?
There we go, sorry.
Thanks.
Is, like, we won't do another ginger beer, for an example, because that's a very specific niche, and Farmer Willie should have that category. But all the others, there's so many craft breweries out there that, you know, having that little competitive stuff it's fine. They've been okay.
It kind of builds up.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about you said that these beers are organic. Getting organic certification can be tough. What was that process like for you?
So it was a multi-day process of working with an organic specialist to come through and make sure that the facility was completely, one, had the ability to be organic, and then the second is that how do we do segmentation? So what we need to do is just be able to have all our organic materials segregated from all the other raw materials. We need to have a cleaning process, which we already inherently had, you know, to be able to kind of make sure we wash that, and then also keep the packaging goods as separate as well. So it's not as complicated as you would think it would be, but there are definitely steps, and it definitely gets reviewed, spot checked whenever they want, just to make sure we're getting it done.
Yeah, organic certified can be intense. So all the materials, like that stuff coming in, that's all checked and certified, and
correct.
That's pretty cool.
So and then we have all supply. Very fancy. We're a very fancy Pawtucket organization. Right?
For sure,
so,
it's great and growing, continuing to grow.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the just mass amounts of beer that you are producing. I was kind of reading about this, and I thought it was fascinating. Just the growth from 2017. into what you're looking at goals for 2018?
So we built the model to have a large scale brewing manufacturing, craft brewing manufacturing. So the facility itself is about the 5th largest in New England. So
Wow.
it really allows us to kind of scale up, but not to get into the true business of it, but it's really about adding fermentation tanks. So right now we could do about 35,000 barrels of beer. And so we were primed to be able to grow pretty quickly. The numbers are pretty staggering. I think we did over 20,000 barrels in 2017, and that's not even a full year production, and then we're going to double that this year. So about 40,000 barrels, and we are actually have already ordered 3 more fermentation tanks to be dropped into our facility in the next couple months. So we're now growing from a packaging perspective. So
Do you have all of those already with product in mind filled, or are you ordering ahead, like we will eventually fill these with
no,
product?
it's actually usually that's the right way to do it. We're playing some catch up ball.
Okay.
So we're like, we need these tanks in here by May to be able to get to the forecast. So the great thing about it is in the first couple months we were working with 30 or 60 days out to kind of work on our forecasting and our brewing side. But now we're actually having the luxury of working 3 to 6 to a year out. Even for like Night Shift, the great organization for being, usually when you're a cult, you think they fall down on the business side. They're really smart guys, and they want to talk about 2018 and 19 already,
wow.
right?
That's
From
great.
that perspective. So we are actually playing a little bit of catch up, but we're set to be able to do that.
You have it figured out.
So, and that
You've
includes hiring.
You've been doing this
so,
kind of thing for a while.
Fit-
Side of things for a while.
Yeah, faking it. But yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
You're like, we're okay.
Yeah, we're okay.
Talk to us before we start wrapping up here.
Yep.
Continuing to have the events, continuing to work towards building up event space and the outside, and continuing that kind of thing. What are you looking at? We've had a pretty, knock on wood, we've had an okay winter so far.
Snow on Saturday. Anyways, but go ahead. Yeah.
But, it hasn't been too bad as we approach spring and summer coming up. So, do you have big ambitions?
We do. We do from definitely a growth perspective. We've been having a ton of events, which has been really exciting. That people are getting to know us, and they realize that we have a lot of room right now to host events. And so we have at least 1 or 2 a week. In the beginning of the year. But, the big plans are simply that we are, and we were just with the designers and the general contractors, we're building up our beer hall. That's going to be about 5,500 square feet with long German beer tables and a bar and just kind of a cool little area. That should be ready by hopefully no later than June. If you hear me, GCs, no later than June. Or July. It's going to be right around that time.
Oh, come on.
And then hopefully at the same time we'll have our beer garden a little bit more developed right outside the beer hall as well. So we'll just have a lot more space to be able to do, never close up, but also have special events on that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're really excited, and we have a couple other things we're working on, but that's the primary.
What about weddings?
Weddings. We do have a space.
Are you looking at tapping into that market?
Absolutely. So we've already had 5 or 6 phone calls about weddings. We told them we only had the brew house space.
Yeah.
One has said, I want to get married in the brew house. I'm like, okay, that's fine. So it's going to happen in November.
Really?
But we have this really cool space that is our 3rd thing that we're working on. So we're just trying to find time to figure that out.
All right.
Yeah.
Are you doing the ceremony?
Yes. Yeah. It's part of the deal. They don't want me there.
No,
they want the space. They don't want me there.
They don't want you. Oh, come on. That's pretty cool. I think just with the continuing growth of space, there's a lot of opportunity. And what's neat too, like you said, working on these collaborations, that's what's so cool about the growing industry, whether it's beer, food, whatever, a lot of collaborations happening in Rhode Island, which is pretty neat.
Yeah.
Just being part of the community too.
It's really about celebrating all things Rhode Island. So we always talk about what can we do about interconnecting everyone, particularly in the food and beverage space. And so that's exactly it.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations.
Cheers, by the way.
Thank you for this.
Thank you.
Thanks for continuing what you do. It's pretty exciting stuff. We'll keep tabs on you. You'll keep
Perfect.
coming back,
Yeah,
right?
I will keep on coming back. Thank you.
That's
Thanks for
awesome.
having me.
Jeremy Duffy with the Guild, thank you so much for joining us. Kate Nagel kicks things off here in just a few moments with all things news and politics. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Molly O'Brien with Go Local Live. We'll see you next time.